MPA Capstone Project Options Specification. This week, you are to submit the Stakeholder Assessment and Options Specification sections of your project. This media lecture covers the Options Specification section. In the Options Specification section of your primary memorandum, you are to identify 3 to 5 options for your client. One option can be the status quo, retaining the current situation. Each must involve a change to the policy that you identified. This is critical. You have to identify how the policy is to be changed for each option. Then explain the options in a table which summarizes what change is involved, who is responsible for implementation, how this might help to ameliorate the problem, and what the stakeholders think of the option. The following is a very simplified version of an options specification table. In this hypothetical scenario, a college cafeteria is considering whether to change its policy about smoking. The columns represent policy options, and the rows represent characteristics of the options. The point of the table is to describe how each option would work. For example, if there was a no smoking policy, then there would be no smoking anywhere. And for example, if we go down to the bottom, there would be no construction project necessary. But if there was a dining area option, then the explanation is there'd be a no smoking dining area, and there would be a construction project called splitting the dining area. Your table would have more rows, but not many more options. You would have 3 to 6 options. But let's explore what the rows would be. The following are some of the rows, some of the policy specification topics that would occur in your table. Explanation. This is a brief summary of what each option involves, what the basic idea of the option is. Policy change. This is an explanation of what change to the policy is necessary to implement the option. Implementation responsibility. This explains who would be responsible to implement the option. Mechanism of effect involves explaining how the option would help solve the problem, which is the focus of the project. For example, if your goal is to reduce traffic, you would need to explain why a policy of charging people to travel in the center of the city would cause there to be less traffic. What would be the mechanism that would cause this to happen? Legal implications. Does the policy require changes in law? Cost. What cost would be involved in implementing the option? Benefits. What special benefits, particular to this option, would also occur? The next topics involve stating the opinions of stakeholders about the options. The point here is to set out what a particular stakeholder thinks about each of the 3 to 6 options, and to have a row for each stakeholder. To complete your policy specification table, you might include other topics in your table that would help to explain your option to your reader. Then, provide an introductory paragraph to this section that explains what the table is about, and provide additional paragraphs under the table that further explain each option. Table formatting is a challenge. It's hard to create a table that reasonably fits on a page, doing everything that the policy specification table is supposed to do. There are a number of techniques that you can use, but one is that we permit the outer while we require the outer parts of the table to have a 12-point font, for the interior cells of the table, you can have a 10-point font, and you'll discover that this dramatically reduces the size of the table. You then can adjust the column width so that the columns having more content are wider. And as a last resort, you can set the page in portrait mode. The following is an example of a policy specification table. You can see that the discussion begins with a heading. There is a paragraph that introduces the table, and then the options go across the top, and the dimensions of analysis or explanation go down the side. And so there's a description, there's an indication of who's responsible, there's a discussion of legal requirements, and there is an analysis of the positions of various stakeholders. Here's another table accomplishing the same task. You'll see there's a header that begins the heading that introduces the assessment policy specification section. And then there's a paragraph that introduces the section. And then the table has the policies across the top, and then down the side are the criteria. Now in this table, the criteria were turned sideways because the author found that it took less space to do that. Sometimes that can work. In summary, the option specification identifies 3 to 5 options for your client and explains the options in a table, summarizing what the change is that's involved, who is responsible, how it might help to ameliorate the problem, and what the stakeholders think. Remember that there is a separate table that assesses the option. Your goal in the option specification table is to simply have your reader and your client completely understand what each option entails. Thank you.